All right. Thank you all so much for tuning on in to another live stream here. This is a series that started a couple of days ago. It's been well received for the most part. It looks like there is interest in it, which is cool. If you guys are anyone here is new, or if you're watching this after it's archived and you're new, my name is LenonHonor, and I've been talking about my journey into the conspiracy theory paradigm. I want to say this to get started that if you are into conspiracy theories, there's nothing wrong with that. If you're into conspiracy facts, there's nothing wrong with that. Facts have to be proven. Conspiracy theories are not quite yet proven, but they can be proven with evidence. I just want you to know that there's nothing wrong with exploring these things. The most important thing is to have balance, which is something that I definitely did not have going back to 2006 when I got into conspiracy theories. And it has had a significant impact on over a decade of my life after. And that's what this series is about. It's about my journey. And I'm hoping that by doing these videos, maybe it might help some of you all if you're into conspiracy theories or even conspiracy facts, that this may help you in your journey to better navigate. I totally got lost. And I'll share more about how deeply I got lost in this particular series. This is episode number 2. LenonHonor, that's my name, The Journey. And I want you all, if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe and hit the notification bell as well. What's up, Jesus Price? Thanks for tuning on in. And one of the OGs, Boston Man, is in the building as well. Thank you so much. Let me give a couple of shout outs to people I haven't shouted out yet. Empress Sasha is here. Caramel, where is that? Caramel Tendencies. Thank you so much. Adriana, thank you for being here. Rashida, thank you all so much. I appreciate it. Amira is here too. I was talking to you earlier. Thank you. And of course, Bobby and QTZ. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. You know, this has been this has not been easy for me. You know, it brings up a lot as I talk about my journey through the conspiracy theory paradigm. It brings up a lot for me. Just the a lot of memories, and I can see myself back then, and it's difficult. You know, it really is difficult. But I also think that the journey is one that can help people, and that's what I hope to accomplish in this series. So this is part 2. I want to get in this because we got a lot to get to. How's it going, Redmond? Thanks for being here. And always myself. I appreciate y'all. And Helmet Child. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm still waiting on a degree. Once it gets here, we're going to celebrate. All right. What's up, Donnie? Donnie's in the building as well. Lady Lily is here as well. And Ed says, peace, Chris said, I'm in the Denver airport. Lenon, have you done a deep dive on the, yeah, I have. I remember that, the murals and all that stuff. Yeah. Well, one of the murals is like real off the wall. I think the guy has a face mask and there's a child looking off. Anyway. Okay, so I want to go ahead and get into this because we have plenty to get to in this particular live stream. And again, this is part 2. I want to thank everyone who watched the part 1 and commented. There's some really interesting comments there. I really appreciate it. I try to respond to as many people as possible. So let's get into this. So this is episode number 2. And I want to go back to what I said in episode number 1. There is nothing wrong with questioning reality and researching conspiracy theories. However, we must be careful not to lose ourselves in the process. And I lost myself in the process and had some serious ramifications for over a decade in my life. Here in episode 2, I want to focus on this. Blind belief is dangerous. We can be led to accept things that are not true while attempting to prove things that are not true. Well, want me to read that again? Let me read that again. Blind belief is dangerous. We can be led to accept things that are not true while attempting to prove things that are not true. And this will actually tie us into episode number 3 if we don't get through episode number 1, because I have it kind of matched up to where if we at a certain point, if we're not at a certain point, if we don't reach a particular slide, then we'll table that until the next live stream. Okay. All right, so I wanted to just reiterate how I got into conspiracy theories, and it was in 2006. I was working on a music album dedicated to my oldest son. I recorded the album at a friend's house, and after the recording session, his roommate came in, and he was like, should we tell him? Should we tell him about it? And I was like, well, what are you guys talking about? Real spooky like, right? And my homie, he was like, no, we shouldn't tell him. He ain't ready. So I was like, what are y'all talking about? And inevitably, his roommate went back to his room and then came back with a book, and it was David Icke's The Biggest Secret. And that's how I got into the conspiracy theory paradigm. That was in 2006, to the best, because this is I don't even know what, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So basically 16, 17 years ago. So I'm thinking it was 2006. All right. And then from that point, I really started to dig deeper and deeper and deeper into conspiracy theories. All right. All right, let me get back to this slide here. And these were the top conspiracy theories that I was theorists that I was getting into at that time. David Icke. I started with David Icke. David Icke led me to Brian Keyes. I also started listening to Alex Jones and Jordan Maxwell. At a certain point, I got into Alex Collier. There was another person that I don't have listed here. I'll probably come back to later on in this series because he really had a huge impact on me, and that was Michael Tessarion. Many of y'all may have heard of him. Okay. All right, so I just put these top 5 conspiracy theories. There's plenty of other ones and we have a whole list that we put together. There's plenty of other ones that I was getting into, but these are the 5 that I want to kind of focus on in this particular presentation, and in the next one too, because we're going to go through Alex Jones and David Icke, and if we have time, we'll get into Brian Keyes, Dr. Wilson Brian Keyes. How's it going, Yafua? Thank you for being here, and Christopher David, thank you so much. All right, let's get to the next slide here. So this is the book, The Biggest Secret, by David Icke, and I read it twice. And then I believe it was the roommate's book, and I ended up giving it back to them, but it had a really huge impact on me, and it sparked my interest. And from that point on, I read a whole bunch of books. I watched a whole bunch of DVDs, a whole bunch of YouTube videos that was really kind of blowing up at that time with the, secret societies and the Bilderbergs and the Illuminati and all this type of information, and especially on YouTube. Okay. Now, I just want to go through this real quickly for people. David Icke, I just want to get into some of the topics that he kind of brought up. Of course, he's well known for the reptilian shapeshifters, and he talked about this reptilian race. First, it was that they existed physically, but then at a certain point, he started to say that they were ethereal, and that they used the royal bloodlines, as in the British royal family bloodline, because of their genetics to be able, and they used that particular bloodline and the genetics therein to be able to influence them and to manipulate them into, fulfilling the will of the reptilian shapeshifters. It was also stated, and I thought about this, and if there's anyone here who remembers, because this is, again, a long time ago, I thought I remember David Icke also saying that he saw, and maybe it was someone else, but he saw the Queen of England or someone change into a reptilian shapeshifter. So what I'm getting at, if anyone heard that, hit the 1. It may have been someone else who said it, but I remember that was something that someone said. I thought it was David Icke, but the point is that that's quite different than saying that they're the ruling elite is being controlled by the reptilian shapeshifters. You see, that would mean that the ruling elite are reptilian shapeshifters. In fact, I remember reading in one of his books, he talked about how they had these eggs in, I guess, the basement of wherever they stay, the castle or the British royal family, whatever it's called, where they all, the big thing, probably some mansion, but down in the basement that they had these eggs, and it was assumed that these eggs were the eggs of reptilian, I don't know. Okay. So I'm not tripping. How's it going, Caramel? I'm not making this up. Okay. I remember reading it. I don't know if it was this book though, Cal Fuchsia, but it was one of the books that I read. I read a whole bunch of his books. Okay, he didn't see it. A blonde woman was a sex slave. Told him, okay, was that Kathy O'Brien, or was that the other lady who wrote? There's one who wrote The Transformation of America. The other one wrote Thanks for the Memories. Okay, all right. I don't know if reptilians are real, but people in South Carolina believe in the lizard man. Google him. Okay. I'm not gonna Google him right now. But thank you for sharing. So those are 2 of the top. David Icke really came into prominence with those 2 topics initially. He also talked about Princess Diana ritual assassination. He actually wrote a book on that, and I remember reading that book too. And that was to say that the death of Princess Diana, that it was not by accident, and that it was some sort of a ritual assassination, so forth and so on. He also talked a lot about satanic rituals, and that had a huge impact on me. I mean, I can't tell you, when we talk about mental health, the satanic rituals and blood sacrifices and pedophile rings, and for the rest of this particular live stream, this episode 2, I'm going to refer to that as PDs, okay? The PDs really got me because I had a young child and then 2 young children at that time. And that really was something that really messed me up really, really bad. September 11th was an inside job, was also a common. In fact, David Icke wrote a book on that too. I remember reading that one. That was a major theme in terms of David Icke's work. There was plenty of other ones though too, but I just want to focus on these for the purpose of this episode, and you guys will see why in just a little bit. Now, these 3 right here in particular, the satanic rituals, the blood sacrifices, and the PDs were the ones that really caused the most distress for me. The satanic rituals, because there was so much, talking about drinking people's blood and all these different types of ritualistic practices. It was scary too, tying people up and all kinds of stuff like this. And then the blood sacrifice where they I don't even want to get into it, but some of you guys know what I'm talking about. It really shook me up really, really bad. And when I say shook me up really bad, I really mean that. And then of course the PDs, that's the thing that really caused me the most amount of distress and anxiety. Again, I had young children at the time. Okay. And then, of course, September 11th was an inside job. This is a common thing as we transition away, common theme as we transition away from David Icke, that many people in the conspiracy theory paradigm were talking about this. And of course, here's a picture, September 11th, 2001. And I wanted to do this last episode, but I'll go ahead and do it this episode. Most of us remember where we were at on September 11th, 2001. And that particular trauma was significant. I wrote a book on it dealing with what I call the trauma-based programming initialized through mass media in and around September 11th. And for successful years, the program went for probably about a decade, but then after that, it filtered out. The point is that particular event was very, very traumatizing. And I talk about this in the book, that this was the first time in human history where a traumatizing event of this magnitude was broadcast live for the world to see. So it wasn't just people in New York who saw what was happening. It was people literally all around the world. See, that's very much significant. So it's interesting that many of people in the conspiracy theory paradigm, they focus on September 11th, but I just think it's worth noting here that really September 11th was a global traumatizing event. And I'm going to explain why that's relevant in just a moment. Good evening, Lenon. Do you remember Conspiracy Theories with Jesse Ventura during 2007? Yeah, absolutely. I used to watch it. Thanks, too, for Super Chat, SOB, and thanks for being here, too. No, I remember that. He had a show, and the show, there was more production value there. It wasn't as, I don't want to use the word spooky. I mean, sometimes it got a little like that, but it was more digestible than some of the other stuff that I was getting into, during that time, like Bohemian Grove, But when I say during that time, I'm just talking about from 2006 until about 2011, 2012. Yeah, I watched those. Someone had commented during episode 1 how even the History Channel started producing content centered around conspiracy theories and that type of thing. You know what? This brings something else to mind, SOB. I didn't mention during episode 1. The precursor, in my opinion, to all of this, though, in terms of conspiracy, was X-Files. How many of y'all in the chat room, did you ever watch X-Files? Hit the 1. Now, some of you may be younger, so you may not even know what it is. But when we talk about conspiracy theories, if we go back, X-Files was one of the major shows that was really dealing in conspiracy theories. Okay. In fact, let me look this up real quick. I want to see, and we already got 155 people here. Thank you all so much. If y'all can hit the like button, help a brother out. Let me go look up X-Files air date. Yeah, that was from 1993 to 2002. Okay, so this predates Alex Jones, right? This predates David Icke really coming into prominence. I think that's very, very important for us to acknowledge right now, because that type of conspiracy theory programming was already it had already become mainstream, But then by the time we get into people like David Icke and Alex Jones, especially when Alex Jones came into prominence, now we're dealing with the internet, right? And it starts to spread like wildfire. Now, we did have internet back in 2002, but the point is that back in 1998, the internet, it wasn't as accessible as it is these days. It's not even close. Okay, but now it's everywhere. Okay, thank you for being here. Thank you, I appreciate it. And here's a couple of people who have ones up here. Everyone remembers exactly. Yeah, I want to get back to this. Let me get. Thank you for saying this, you fool. So I want to just say this. And as we get further along in these episodes, it'll become more apparent why this is so relevant, in particular for me, because I've always had this sense that those of us who have experienced certain levels of trauma, that we're more susceptible to getting into conspiracy theories. Now, I'm making a distinction. Conspiracy theories meaning conspiracies that have not yet been proven. There's also conspiracy facts that someone had posted during episode 1 in the comment section. So I want to make that distinction right now. But I want people to think about this, that September 11th, 2001 was a global traumatizing event. That's very much significant for us to think about. It's a global, everyone's strong, and everyone remembers where they were, assuming you're of a certain age. For me, I was living in Oakland at the time, okay? And me and my wife, we were about to celebrate we've been together now for what? I think almost 23 years. So it's been a while. She had stayed the night. She had stayed the night, and I was living with he was I keep wanting to say band director, but he's the band manager for a group that I was performing with, and I actually performed with a group while I was in college the first time. But then years later, I went out there because he was going to help me to jumpstart my career. But she stayed the night. And afterwards, we we got in the car, had a blue Isuzu Trooper, and we were, and I can remember exactly where I was at too, on the street. So we're driving. We make a left turn after we come down. We make a left turn, then we make a right hill turn to go down the hill. And right before we get the light, I turned the radio on because I was going to put some music on. Right, I turned the radio on, and I stopped at the light right there, about to make a right, and that's when I hear what was going on. They're talking about a plane has crashed. And we don't know what's going on. They thought it was just a plane crash, right? And so I end up dropping her off at work. And then I come back home, and I get up, run up the steps, get into and I turn on the TV, and that's where I see. I think by that time the second plane had hit. If remember, because I didn't see the second plane hit. By that time the second plane hit. That's a global traumatizing event, and that's the first time. And I talk about this in my book. That's the first time in human history where something like that has been broadcast for the world to see live. Had a very profound impact. That's why most of us, if we're of a certain age, we remember exactly where we were at that time. And I remember exactly where I was when I first heard, and then of course when I came back to the house and I turned on the TV, and it was traumatizing. Okay, all right. So just real quick, I see the people who watch X-Files. Yeah, it was a good show. I love that show. Yeah, I know. Then he died and he came back alive. And then he was his daddy. I thought it was anyway. Okay. Real quick, Lenon, what's the name of the old dude from World War II who was on Project Camelot, who was the commander of SHAPE, who went nuts and said he was friends? I don't remember that one, but I used to watch Project Camelot. I was trying to get on that show. I really was. One of these days, I'm going to show you all what I mean. I was trying to get on that show so bad. Okay, we got 160 people here. If y'all hit the like button, I appreciate it. How's it going, DJ Binky? Thank you for being here. Yeah, X-Files, that was cool. Yeah, that was what it was. The truth is out there. And isn't that the kind of like the terminology that we get into with the conspiracy theory? You know, I want to know the truth. I want to know the truth, that type of thing. Right? All right. Yeah, there's plenty of people who used to watch that. Even the music was spooky. Okay. Yeah, I used to watch V. I watched all those as a child. We used to have those TVs where you had to turn the knob and had antennas like that. And it was all blurry. You couldn't really see that good. But I used to watch V when it first came out a long time ago. Yeah, absolutely. And again, thanks to SOP for the super chat too. I want to make sure I thank people for that. Okay. I mean, there's a lot of comments in here, but we got to keep going here. Iceman, what's up, man? Says conspiracy theory is a term coined by the CIA, and they used it to discredit people who questioned JFK assassination. Yeah, I've heard that too. But when I say, and just to be clear, because we talked about this in episode 1, because there were people who they felt as if me using that term was derogatory. I don't see it as derogatory. I was a conspiracy theorist, okay, myself. And when I mean that, I really went deep into it, far too deep. The point is, someone also said, well, there's a such thing as conspiracy fact. There's nothing wrong with a theory. That just means that it's unproven. But then you provide evidence to prove the theory, right? And once the theory is proved, now it's a conspiracy fact. So I just want to make that distinction, because I'll put up a list of different conspiracy theories, but one could argue that there are many of those, or at least some of those, that are conspiracy facts, right? Okay. Thanks, Iceman Vamp. And I just want to say this again. If you're into conspiracy theories, this show is not about bashing conspiracy theories, theorists or conspiracy theories at all. That's not the point of this. The point is to illustrate my journey and to show you all and exhibit some of the pitfalls that we can succumb to. And mine were very, very many of them, and then how it can impact us for me over a decade. Right. Thanks, Iceman Vamp. I remember the first day. Oh, I'm sorry. I was reporting to my first day at work at AAA at MacArthur in Oak. Oh, I know exactly where that's at. Wow, they sent us all. Yeah. A lot of people were sent home. Yeah, a lot of people were sent home at that time. Yeah, my wife, she ended up working, but that whole time period, it's really something that we can't forget. Unless you're younger, it's something that sticks with us, and it's going to stick with us for the rest of our life. Yeah, but they did. They sent people home. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Okay. Real quick, one conspiracy that I know did come true was the whole drone stuff in the 90s and early 2000s, and then boom, in 2010 came around, and it was proven that the drone were spying on. Yeah. Even the idea of drones, the technology wasn't so advanced, and it wasn't as accessible and prevalent. But nowadays, just think about what people do with drones that they purchase off of eBay or they purchase off of Amazon. See, people talked about that type of technology a long time ago. Okay, and here it is. We now have access to it, right? Passio is on YouTube advocating overthrowing the government. Yeah, you're talking about Mark Passio. I've met Mark Passio. I think I interviewed him. He interviewed me a couple of times too. I haven't been in contact with him or talked with him in it has to at least be 8 years, something like that. Yeah, but yeah, there's a lot of the people that you guys may know who are in the conspiracy theory paradigm. I actually either know them, or I know of them, or I've met them. Right, going back many years ago. I didn't learn about the Bohemian Grove from Alex Jones. I read a book about the Bush family, and it mentioned their attendance at. Okay, yeah, I heard it from. And thanks, Gamers and Rick. I heard that. I heard it from specifically from Alex Jones. Okay, let's get back to this. So I just wanted to point this out because this was a global traumatizing event, and it really did fuel the time for conspiracy theories to begin to become more prevalent in media. And of course, Alex Jones, he really picked up on the September 11, 2001 tragedy. I want to share something else because I know I talked about the biggest secret, and I also talked about the reptilian shapeshifters. One of the people that I really got into through David Icke was someone named Credo Mutwa, and he was a South African South African shaman. Rest in peace. Let me slow down. I just feel like I need to, because there's so much here, and I don't. Let me just slow down. Okay, I hope y'all don't mind. I'm just trying my best. Credo Mutwa was a South African shaman, and somehow, some way, he got in contact with David Icke, and he started to talk about what he called the Chitahuri, and these were a reptoid race, if you will. And he has these stories that he tells about them, and not just them, but other, I guess you can say, extraterrestrials. I don't even remember if he classified Chitahuri as extraterrestrial. It may be that he proposed that they were on Earth, they have been on Earth. But the thing about Credo was that first, he was African, so that meant something to me. You have someone, in David Icke, who's, in Britain, if you will, okay, and then you have someone all the way on the other side of the. Well, I don't know if you want to say on the other side of the planet, but far away in South Africa, and he's telling a similar story. And what that did for me is it validated David Icke. Plus, it's coming from an African. It's coming from an African shaman. Understand that prior to getting into conspiracy theories, I was into Black consciousness. Reading books on Black consciousness, studying that type of stuff from the age of 18 through maybe the age of 23, like really just learned dashikis and all that type of thing. So when Credo Mutwa comes onto the scene, that really validated that, for me at least, it validated the idea of reptilian shapeshifters. I want to make a point here. The Reptilian Agenda was a DVD set, and I actually downloaded it, and I was thinking about in one of these episodes playing it. But if we do that type of thing and play videos and all that type of stuff, I would like to. Then this series will probably go on a lot further than what I had anticipated. But this was a 3 DVD set, and this particular, it's really intriguing. It really is. It's long, and it's very intriguing. Credo Mutwa is a fantastic storyteller, and he's relatable too, very relatable. But the thing is that I literally used to watch this, and I would just watch each DVD over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. I can't tell you because here's the African kept telling these stories. He has on the ankh, and okay, we know this type of thing. It was a very different time for me when I was really kind of immersing myself in this. And I can't tell you how many times I watched this particular DVD set. And it wasn't just this. He also wrote books, and his books on African folktales are absolutely phenomenal. I mean, the books are about this thick, and I ordered all of them. They're hard to find too, but back then I ordered all of them and I read them, and they were really good. In fact, my wife read them too. She was like, these are awesome. Okay, so the storytelling aspect of this was interesting. The thing is that because he talked about the Chitahuri, and then David Icke talked about the reptilian shapeshifters and the kind of like the correlation between the two. Well, for me, Credo Mutwa validated David Icke's claim, and then I began to believe in reptilian shapeshifters. Now, beyond that, was there any evidence, conclusive evidence? No, but that was enough for me back then to accept it. All right, I just want to make that point. All right. So I wanted to put this back up here because the reptilian shapeshifters, they became real to me because of the validation of Credo Mutwa. Okay, rest in peace. Now, of course, Alex Jones, he's on the scene, and he really begins to pick up traction, especially after September 11, 2001. And some of the conspiracy theories that he promoted, or he talked a lot about, was the Bohemian Grove. Many of you guys remember that. Another one was martial law. All right. Another one was Sandy Hook shooting, which he's actually been sued for, and he owes over $1 billion to the families of the Sandy Hook shootings. He talked a lot about satanic rituals, a lot about blood sacrifices, and PD rings. He talked about the homosexual agenda, which had a major influence and impact on me. And he also talked a lot about the September 11th, that September 11th was an inside job. And many people talked about that. If I can just pause for a moment, the homosexual agenda, I want to, because this is, and maybe this isn't the time to talk about it, but it really did impact me. And he's not the only one that talked about that. But I remember he did this video where he talked about, and I'm not making this up because I was going to play it for this episode, but I'm not going to do it. Just take my word for it, or anyone in the chat room, if you remember this, hit the one. But he was talking about how the U.S. government had created a what he called a gay bomb, and how they were in Afghanistan and they dropped the gay bomb, and it turned the Afghani fighters gay, so that way it made them easier for the U.S. military to, I guess, win the war or win the fight or whatever. I'm not making this up, okay? I mean, I have the video because I have it archived. I was going to play it. No, he said it was called a gay bomb. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Listen, if you're LGBT, I apologize. Okay, I didn't really want to bring this up. Okay, I apologize, but this is what he said. I'm not making it up, Amir. Listen, what's up, Window? William, you're William, like I remember. Yeah, the whole homosexual agenda thing, it messed me up really, really bad. And you guys will see what I mean as we progress through through these episodes. That's what he said. I'm not making it up. You remember? No, he didn't call it a glitter bomb. He called it a gay bomb. That's what he called it. And I figure if you got a gay bomb, you should also have a heterosexual bomb too, right? You call it a hetero bomb. Okay, where's that at? Let me stop playing. I don't mean to laugh. I don't want to, especially if any of y'all, I apologize. If you're LGBTQ, I don't want y'all to take offense. Okay, I've offended you all enough with my foolishness. I apologize. Okay, you guys need to stop. Let me get out of here. Some people do believe it's an agenda, right? I get it. There was and because of the propaganda that I was consuming, I just took it to the extreme. But I will talk about, not in this episode, but we'll get into this. We'll probably have to wait the next episode. Mental illness is real. I can't believe that guy. No, he said it. I can play it for you right now. You guys just have to trust me. I'm not going to get up here in line. There's people who validated by us hitting one. Okay, I can put a link in here right now because I have its archive where y'all can go listen to this guy. But I don't want to do that. Okay, let's continue. SOB says globalists, Illuminati, and elites were just euphemisms for Jews. When Alex would talk about them, just anti-Semitic rhetoric. I don't remember him specifically talking about Jews all that much, you know. But the thing is that with Alex Jones, the one thing I did notice with a lot of his rhetoric, especially after he became really, really popular, was it did reach kind of like this idea of what we call white nationalism. Okay, that's one of the things that at a certain point I said, wait a minute, I can't keep, and I didn't listen to him for too long, but I listened to him long enough to where it impacted me on, especially the fear. A lot of the fear and anxiety came through what he was talking about. But at a certain point, he really, it sounded more like white nationalism, and at that point I was like, I can't, you know, I really can't, I just can't. I mean, it wouldn't make sense for me, right? His rhetoric has changed. You know, I remember he used to bring up anti-Semitic rhetoric, but there was a lot of his rhetoric was anti-immigrants, in particular people from Mexico, because I think he was based in Texas, right? And he would talk a lot about people coming over the borders and all this type of stuff in disparaging ways. And I just don't believe. I grew up in San Diego, so that's right on the border with Tijuana and Mexico. I don't have that same orientation towards Mexican people. So when I heard that, even when I was hearing that, I was like, wait a minute, this is a lot different than when he was talking about Bohemian Grove, right? Okay. Thanks, SOB, for the super chat. They also dropped the beaver bomb stuff. You guys don't do that, because see, now y'all gonna get the LGBT. I'm trying to mend my thing with the LGBT because I've really acted up for some time, going way back into. Anyway, I apologize to LGBT. I'm sorry. I hope no one gets offended. Okay, so Bohemian Grove was a huge one that he brought up. We got about 180 people here. He talked a lot about martial law. That brought a lot of fear into me, the whole martial law, because I had a young family, and we talked about tanks on the street and you know, protect your family and blah, blah, blah. The Sandy Hook shooting, of course, we talked about that. And then here we are, satanic rituals, the blood sacrifice, the PD rings, the homosexual agenda. And of course, September 11th was an inside job. He did a lot of work talking about September 11th. And of course, many of you guys may remember this. This is the dark secrets inside Bohemian Grove. This is really what put Alex Jones, it brought him into prominence, was this particular video. I don't even know if it's got to be out there somewhere for people to watch, but I don't think it's online like on YouTube anymore. It may be, but they banned him a couple of years ago. But this particular video was something that really scared me. I remember he talked about the cremation of care, what he called the cremation of care. And then he showed like this pamphlet and then the skeleton inside of like kind of lingering, falling out of a fire. And the idea was that they do these child sacrifices. And again, I had children, so that really messed me up really bad. Alex Jones really messed me up. Okay. I became, and I'll talk more about this inside of this particular episode, the mental health aspect of all of this, which some of you may be able to relate to. I mean, if you had, and I'll ask this question later, I'm not going to ask it now, but the point is that I remember him talking about the cremation. Anybody else remember cremation care? When he talked about that in particular, that really shook me up. Okay. But in particular, this Dark Secrets of Bohemian Grove, there's like this ritual that's going on, and there's music in the background, and then there's fireworks, and there's this owl, and they're doing this. I don't even know what the big deal was exactly, but it. Okay, can you guys hear me now? I apologize. I forgot to change out my batteries. Yeah, if you guys can hear me now, let me know. And let me see, you guys haven't heard me for, well, it hasn't been that long. It's probably what, about maybe 30, 40 seconds. Yeah, okay. Can you hear me now? Okay, I got to change this other battery out too. But what I was saying was this particular, the ritual that he was showing in that particular video, it really it scared me. It scared me. And then talking about the sacrifices, and they didn't show any of that type of thing, but it was enough for me to be extremely fearful. Okay, let me get these other batteries, and you can hear me now. Okay. All right, so let me bring up the next slide. There's more I could say about this, but this probably was one of the videos that shook me up the most out of all of Alex Jones's work. And he talked a lot about the Bohemian Grove, and then he talked about people who were there, who were at the Bohemian Grove, Anyway, let's go ahead and let it go. Okay, and yeah, if y'all can hit the like button, I appreciate it. Okay, let me pull up the next slide. Then I'm gonna change out these batteries. Give me 1 second. I'll pull the slide up, and then I'll be right back. This is a slide from 911, The Road to Tyranny. He did a lot of work, and actually, I can wait just a moment. He did a lot of work talking about September 11th. Okay, I remember watching this film too. Another one was Terror Storm. This one was scared me a lot too, right? Terror Storm, second edition, updated and expanded. Another one was Endgame. This one really scared me. Blueprint for Global Enslavement. Okay, that doesn't sound good at all. All right. So I watched all these, but the four things that really, again, that impacted me the most was the satanic rituals, the blood sacrifice, the PD rings, and then the homosexual agenda. And that had a huge impact on the direction of my own documentary work that I began to produce. And I think I first started in 2007. It may have been in 2008, because by that time I'd spent a lot of time researching and studying different conspiracy theories. But these four right here, all the propaganda that I got from this really impacted me in the direction of my life. Now, I want to talk about mental health, and this is where things get serious. Okay, I want to talk about mental health because it's not just that I looked into David Icke. It's not just that I looked into Jordan Maxwell, Michael Tsarion, Alex Jones, Michael Collier. I mean, the list is expansive. And I went way in too deep and got consumed by it. And everything was fear. It was just fear. Put you in a state of fear. I used to call it being in a state of perpetual fear. And all the different propaganda, especially about the PDs, that really messed me up bad. And it affected my mental health. I want to talk about this right now, just because I think it's relevant. The four things that I could remember, and there's probably more, but four things that I could remember in terms of mental health was having anxiety and really extreme anxiety, developing paranoia, becoming hyper-vigilant, okay, so hyper-vigilance, and then becoming delusional, and delusional on two main levels. Okay, and we'll get into that for just a moment. But I want to take a moment to really kind of dig into this, because this is very important when we talk about getting lost in the conspiracy theory paradigm. So what is anxiety? Anxiety is a feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease, typically about an event or something with an uncertain outcome. Okay, so you may be worrying about something, and you become nervous, you become uneasy, because you think that there is something that is about to happen. And in some cases, you don't know exactly what it is. That's the scary part. In some cases, you may know what it is, and you don't know what the outcome is going to be. That makes it even worse. And so you begin to develop anxiety. And I had a lot of anxiety. What's up, Donald? Thank you for being here. I had a lot of anxiety. Let me ask, if you guys are willing to answer, anyone here, when you were in the conspiracy theory paradigm, did you experience any anxiety? Hit the one. Okay. And when I say I experienced it, I mean, I was a total wreck. But the thing is, I just kept going. It's interesting, because you keep going deeper into the rabbit hole, and then you just keep getting more and more anxious about things, and and for whatever reason, you just keep going. And that was me. Okay. Yeah, so I see a lot of ones in here. So I'm not alone. And those of y'all who experienced it, you're not alone either. It really had a profound impact on me. It really did. And not just anxiety. There was other things too. And I want to specifically focus on some of the things that I had anxiety about. One was my children's safety. And part of it was all the PD stuff that they would talk about. I had a young child when I first got into the conspiracy theory paradigm, and we had our second child. And so I had a lot of fears about my children's safety, and that really impacted a lot of the decisions that I made, and my wife, we made with our children. And if we hadn't had this level of anxiety, we probably would have done things a lot differently. That's what I mean by it can have a very profound impact on people. Okay. Wendell says depression as well. Well, depression usually comes out of anxiety. Prolonged anxiety tends to bring on depression, and there's different levels of depression too. You see. And the hard part about it is that when you're depressed, you tend to think about things in a negative way. So then you may keep consuming the negative content, and then it just builds the anxiety. So you get more and more depressed. I mean, if you're already not feeling good about the world, because I got to the point where I had such a very negative view about the world, extremely negative view. I didn't trust, and we'll get into this just a moment. I just didn't trust, because all of this stuff. But if you already have that mentality, but you keep watching and you keep digging deeper, well, it's just going to compound itself over time. And again, like I said, it's different if we have balance going in. And other people have said this too. Okay, in the chat room for episode 1, and also in the comment section, it's really about balance. If you can approach it with the level of balance, you can manage things. So that you don't get too far over here, you don't get too far over here. You just okay, all right. But that's not how that was me, right? So I had anxiety about my children's safety. I had anxiety about the Illuminati and Satanists, and then television, government agencies, and in particular population reduction. Okay, because I had a young family. I was like, population reduction. And then one of the things that Alex Jones talked a lot about was the FEMA death camps. And I remember my imagination would just kind of go wild. It didn't make much sense, but I could just see, in my mind, these FEMA death camps and all these people in there, and they're malnourished and people dying. And then they talked about they're in chains, and they talked about the FEMA coffins, and that was because they were going to be, I guess, population reduction, and they got to have these coffins to put the dead bodies in, and you just go deeper and deeper and deeper into it, and then it just compounds itself, right? Yeah, I do too, by the way. Yeah, we didn't even have a television. What we used to do, we used to go and get VHS tapes and DVDs and watch, and then we would screen them before we let our children watch it. Okay, that's it's one thing to be protected, but it's another thing to be hyper vigilant. But a lot of that comes out of the anxiety. We had a lot of anxiety dealing with children's safety, television, government agency, population reduction, FEMA death camp. I can put a whole mini list of this. Don't you start. Please don't start. All right. The X-Files talked about the FEMA take. Yeah, they sure did. I remember that. That's what I'm saying. And the reason why I brought up X-Files earlier is because I didn't really think about that while I was putting together the first presentation. That should have been up there towards the beginning, because that was a precursor to a lot of this stuff. I just didn't think about it. X-Files was out. And I remember when I was in college the first time, that's when it really was coming, but I didn't get into conspiracy theories until 2006. You see what I mean? So that's what? That's about 7 years later. But when I think about it, I can definitely see the connection, between what they were talking about in X-Files and a lot of stuff that start to come onto the scene once the conspiracy theories start to pick up. Right. All right. So these are just some of the examples of anxiety that I felt. And then, of course, paranoia, unjustified suspicion and mistrust of other people or their actions. Another definition is the unwarranted or delusional belief that one is being persecuted, harassed, or betrayed by others, occurring as part of a mental condition. Okay? And I wanted to put that in there, the part of the mental condition, because all of this really had an impact on my mental health. I've never really talked about this, but it is so true, and I can actually show you that. Okay, and I may, if I have enough courage, I may show it to y'all at some point in this episode. So continue to stay tuned. All right. Paranoia, unjustified suspicion and mistrust of other people or their actions. And for me, it was like suspicion and mistrust of everybody outside of, my wife and our children. All right. X-Files came out in 1993, but I didn't really start to get into it until maybe 1997. Maybe 1996. Yeah. And then, of course, the unwarranted or delusional belief that one is being persecuted at a certain or harassed or betrayed by others, occurring as part of a mental condition. My thing was, at a certain point, it wasn't about the quote unquote Illuminati or the Freemasons or the global elite. It wasn't about them trying to take over the world. At a certain point, I felt like they're specifically targeting me. That was wild. Okay, because the paranoia had gotten so bad that I started, wait a minute, black helicopters, let's see. Here's some of the things that I had paranoia about: the Illuminati, a lot of paranoia about Satanists, okay, chemtrails, helicopter, the black helicopters. I talked about the whole chemtrails things. I didn't even like going outside. I would see that now, but chemtrails, black helicopter. Let me tell you a story about the helicopters. Like where we lived when I first, where we lived at the time, I really started getting deep into conspiracy theories. There were helicopters would fly by from time to time, and I didn't think of them at first all that much. But the more and more I got into conspiracy theories, and they were talking about black helicopters and these clandestine operations, and they're coming to your town, and that's Alex Jones. After I got more and more into that information, every time I would see a helicopter, I start getting, and then I would think that they're surveillance. There's surveillance, for me, for some reason. For what? You know what I mean? It didn't even make no sense. Lenon, have you heard of gang stalking? It's a kind of, I've heard of that. Yep, I've heard of that too. So chemtrails, helicopters, and I really went off the deep end having paranoia dealing with the entertainment industry, specifically music and movies, and also music videos, because there was someone, I talked about it yesterday or a couple of days ago in episode number 1. There was someone called Hashim's Films that got into that stuff, and I really got deep into their information. And then at a certain point, like I had so much anxiety dealing with that and paranoia dealing with the entertainment industry, and I would say things like everyone inside the entertainment industry who are high ranking, they're all Satanists. Okay, how do I know that? Could it be that some of them are? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's possible that some of them are Christian, right? Some of them may be Muslim, some of them may be Buddhist, right? But to make that broad stroke and that type of statement and saying that everyone, that's over the top. And that's one of the things like I really regret about that time period. Like I made so many different statements that were just over the top like that, but a lot of it had to do with where my mind was at, and just having this sense of extreme paranoia about things. Then you make these extreme statements to kind of cope with it, with the paranoia, So the entertainment industry, music and movies, also paranoia about the public education system was a huge one for me. And I don't know if I put this, let me see if I didn't put the slide in here. I meant to put the slide in here. There was a book that I wrote, I read by Gatto. Let me just, I meant to put the slide in. I just totally forgot. It was dealing with compulsory. Most of you probably haven't read this one or heard of it. Compulsory education. So it's called "Dumbing Us Down: The Hidden Curriculum of Compulsory Education" by John Gatto. And my wife and I both read that book, and that had a profound impact on our decisions to keep our children at home and homeschool them. Which wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but in retrospect, when we think about it, it's different if we make a decision that's really rooted in, being calm and collective and really thinking about things. But it's another thing when we make these rash decisions out of fear. And that's what I mean by the impact that this type of information can have, especially if we're not balanced as we're going through it. So I read that book and it really messed me up. It messed me up. And so I had a lot of distrust for the public education system. And I talked about this too on the Information Man Show. And I want to share this story too with you all, because this is really when I really went overboard with the PD stuff. The fear and the anxiety, and that became my greatest fear, was that my children would be victimized by PDs. Okay. And if you guys don't know, we already gave the definition. If you guys look down there at the bottom, that's what I'm talking about. So back then I used to perform. When I met my wife, I used to perform. That's the main reason why I moved out to Oakland in the first place. I was trying to jumpstart my music career. It didn't work out, but I ended up meeting my wife, so that's all good. But once we got settled in San Diego, I was working on music for this guy, and we would record I would do the music at home, and then I would go down to the studio. There was a studio down in downtown San Diego, and we would transfer the audio. It's like this process transferring audio. We didn't do MIDI, we did audio. So we'd have to go track by track. But the point, that's irrelevant. The point is that I'm working down there to get all the music, I guess you can say, stored onto the hard drive for the computer and the software. They were using Pro Tools at that time. And I would get checks, like each time. But the thing is that the guy that I was doing the music for, at a certain point, he stopped showing up. I mean, he just didn't even come down there anymore. And so at a certain point, I would go down there, and the studio technician would just give me a check. And at first I didn't. Okay, that's if that's how it is, it doesn't make me any difference. I'm not doing this for free. It was just really, really weird. And time goes by. At a certain point, everything is done, at least on my end. And I'm assuming that they're still working to get everything else done with the guy who hired me. But I don't get paid. I don't get paid for the final, the final check for everything. And time goes by. And at a certain point, the studio technician, I actually was calling him too, because I couldn't get in contact with the guy. I was calling the studio technician, like, what's going on? And he wouldn't say anything for a while. And then I said, well, I need to get paid. And he said, well, I don't have a check for you. And time went on. And at a certain point, I go down there. The two studio technician says that he had a check for me. So I go down there. And when I pick up the check, and this is after the project is already finished, the studio technician, he's like, here's the check. He hands me the check. And I was like, well, where's the guy? I ain't seen the guy in months. What's going on here? And he says, well, the project is completed, but while you were doing your part, he was actually in the court system. And I said, well, why? He said, well, because he was accused of child molestation. And I was like, what? And then I said, well, what ended up happening? And he says, well, actually, they're still going through the proceeding. It ended up, he was convicted at a certain point. And I didn't hear about it even until later after that, but he was convicted. And the crazy part of it, and it was from stuff that happened in the past, like I don't even know, like over a decade before. But the point is, he was still convicted. And the crazy part was that he was a teacher. So I already have all of this anxiety and fear and paranoia about the public school system. And then I already have this stuff about PDs. And then this happens. And I have this guy at my house twice. So if you can imagine my mental state at that point, it's just everything for me. It was like, okay, I got to keep my family safe from these PDs. I got to keep my children safe from PDs. And now anyone that I perceive to be a threat, it's not because, they have a gun in their hand. It's because they're potentially a PD. I wouldn't have had that orientation if I hadn't already gotten into the David Icke stuff and the ritual sacrificing of children and the sex rituals and the Alex Jones and all this stuff. But that event right there pushed me way, way over the edge. And I became what is called hyper-vigilant. Okay. So there it is right there. Paranoia about the public education system. And then, of course, of PDs. I became hyper-vigilant. And what that means is the elevated state of constantly assessing potential threats around you, even if there aren't any threats. And that's where I was at in my mind. I'm always thinking of some sort of threat. There's always a threat. I had this, this PD came to my house twice. You know, he was a school teacher. Well, I mean, how do you process that, especially if you're already dealing with stuff from the conspiracy theory paradigm that you know, it's just over the top. So I became hyper vigilant. And here's some things, of course, that I became hyper vigilant about. PDs. I became hyper vigilant about the music and entertainment industry, music in particular, music videos, and of course, movies. See? I want to say something else too. The hypervigilance is the elevated state of constantly assessing potential threats around you is often the result of trauma. I want to ask the question: trauma of what kind? What trauma? What trauma exactly? Well, it was the trauma of consuming all that information up to that point in the conspiracy theory paradigm. And really, at that point, it was probably about 2 years in, maybe 3 years in, and just really going deep, 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 and deeper into the conspiracy theory paradigm, going down into the rabbit hole, as we used to say. You see? So that's the trauma. The trauma is the pursuit of this information and not being balanced as I was getting deeper into it and allowing it to consume me. But really what it did is it affected my mental health to be where I became fearful. I became paranoid. I had a lot of anxiety. And then I became hypervigilant. Okay. Let me go back real quick. Did any of you all in the chat room, did any of you guys experience any paranoia while you were getting into the conspiracy theory paradigm? And let me show you all the definition again: unjustified suspicion and mistrust of other people or their actions, the unwarranted or delusional belief that one is being persecuted, harassed, or betrayed by others, occurring as part of a mental condition. Anyone else experienced that while you were in the conspiracy theory paradigm? You don't have to answer, but if you want to, you're more than welcome to do so. And then I want to ask the question, did anyone become hypervigilant? An elevated state of constantly assessing potential threats around you. Okay. Yeah. Oh yes. Yeah. Yeah. I was so paranoid. I am still hyper vigilant to this day and slightly paranoid to an extent. My girlfriend notices it anytime we are out because I am constantly looking around. I think it's from my yeah. You can. I mean, there's many things that can cause that. I am still hyper vigilant. I'm still like that. Not to the level that I was before, but I am still hyper vigilant. You know, it's just that the trauma for me was the conspiracy theories that I'd gotten into, and then of course that situation with the guy. I mean, I can't remember how many years he got, but he was in jail a long time. I don't even know if he's still alive. I have no idea. But the point is that was, in addition to the information I was getting into, that was like way over the top. You know, it's like, you know. Okay. And then the other thing too is a delusion. I became delusional, and that's a false belief or judgment about external reality held despite uncontrovertible evidence to the contrary, meaning that you perceive reality on a level that's not actually reflective of what is before you, right? The evidence shows something else. It's incontrovertible, but you still think that the reality is a different way, right? That everyone's out to get you, or that the PDs are running amok, and that the school system is filled with PDs, and PDs are everywhere, and they're in the music, and they're in the videos, and they're in the movies, and they're all over the place. See, or the Satanists are everywhere, you know, or they're doing all of these satanic rituals and everywhere, you know, that type of thing. And for me, I became delusional about society, had a very negative view about society, externally speaking, had a very negative view about the public school system, a very negative view about hospitals. And at a certain point, I became delusional about myself. Watch this. At a certain point, I believed that I was going to be the one, through doing these documentaries, I was going to be the one that's going to help to save children from PDs. I was going to be the ones to teach parents how to keep their children safe from PDs. I was going to be the one that's going to fight against the New World Order. I'm going to be the one that's going to fight against the Illuminati. That's delusion. It's really delusion of grandeur in a twisted kind of way. But I'd gotten so deep into this stuff that's how I perceived myself. But not just that. Like I said earlier, I was delusional because I felt as if I was being specifically targeted by the Illuminati or by the reptilian shapeshifters or whatever. But there's no evidence of that, none. But that's what I began to believe. Well, that's delusional. See? So what I'm getting at is the mental health aspect of this cannot be understated. And if we're going to live healthy, whole lives, we got to be careful about that, because we can go down that rabbit hole and then all of a sudden our world is turned upside down. And before we know it, we're not even thinking straight. You see? Now, I mean, we're only an hour in. I do have a whole second half to this. Let me know. Would you guys like? I would actually. I think let's go ahead and stop here because I have a whole second half to this. But I set this up to when we get to this part, we can actually close it out. We're under an hour because I want to try to keep these under an hour. But before we close out, is anyone have any questions on anything that we covered here in this particular live stream? I want to read this again. This is for episode 2. Blind belief is dangerous. We can be led to accept things that are not true while attempting to prove things that are not true. Oh, you won't you want to keep going? I mean, we could. Don't believe in yeah, don't go chasing waterfalls. Despite the over the topness, were you wrong? Well, that's a good question. The geek surgeon. I like the name too, by the way. I'm a bit of a geek. Techie stuffy. That's a good question. The problem for me is when I look back, and that's what I wanted to get into at the second half of this, but I think it'll be better because if we can keep this under an hour and then I'll come back in 2 days, we can get to the next part. The thing is that when I would go over the top, it actually dismisses the truth in essence, because now it's like I'm saying something, because I remember one time I said it because I watched the video because in prep for this video, because I wanted to get into how I started to do documentary work and the work of Wilson Bryan Key, and how he talked about how Michael Jackson's Beat It was about homosexual male group masturbation. And I was like, this guy's out of his mind. And that's what I really want to kind of get going on in this episode. But I think it'd be better to stop here, and that way we can come fresh to specifically deal with that. But the thing I remember, because I watched it the other day, and it's on one hand, I can kind of see what I was trying to get at, but then on the other hand, I was like, wait a minute, this is over the top. You know, it was like borderline homophobic. And then there's things that I say in there, like I said that all of the high-ranking people in media and in sports and in the entertainment industry and in government, they're all practicing Satanists. How do I know that? That's over the top. And the statement itself, that's not true. Now, some, yeah, probably. If anybody walked into Alex Jones, yeah, probably. But all? So that's what I'm getting at. When it gets to that point and then commentary becomes unbalanced, that's where it's not about truth anymore. You know, because I can make a statement and there may be some truth that there are, practicing Satanists or PDs in government, and we know yes, that is the case. But to say all, no, that's over the top, and then it skews the truth. You know, and I had a very serious problem with that. But part of it was being just all the information that I've been consuming. It traumatized me, and my mind, how I saw things, was reflective of that. You know. Okay, any other questions before we close out? I mean, we could go to the next thing, but I mean, I want to kind of, well, maybe we should. What do y'all think? Let me know what y'all think, because I have it all queued up already. Honestly, I'm paranoid about PDs, and I'm not even down that conspiracy. Yeah, I get that too, but for me, my paranoia and vigilancy, if you will, it wasn't nearly what it was prior to dealing with this particular issue. The PDs wasn't nearly what it was prior to getting into conspiracy theories. And when I got into conspiracy theories, it just grew. You know, same thing with having these views about homosexuality. You know, and that's part of what I was getting in the part 2 or the second half of this episode number 2. Prior to getting into conspiracy theories, I didn't necessarily have a negative view about homosexuals or the homosexual lifestyle. Let me say it that way, because it's not so much about the person. It's more about. But once I got into the conspiracy theory paradigm, that began to change, because there was so much propaganda about the elite being PDs, and they're practicing Satanists, and they also practice homosexuality, and there's a homosexual agenda, all that type of thing. That really warped my mind and how I began to see homosexuality. And I'm saying homosexuality versus a homosexual, because homosexual is dealing with the person in essence. Okay, I'm just saying just as a person versus the actual sex axis. Part of it was that, and I can't remember who it was who proposed this. I think it was someone associated with David Icke, and I think David Icke wrote about this too. If anybody remembers, hit the one. But he wrote about it. I think he wrote about it. But there was a woman who talked about this. It was either in the book Transformation of America or the book Thanks for the Memories. Okay, one was Kathy O'Brien. I can't remember the other lady's name right now. I mean, I can pull it up. But they talked about how mind control and MK Ultra and how they would mind control people was through homosexual sex acts, and that by engaging in a particular type of homosexual sex act, that it can actually splinter the mind of the victim, and it would form honeycombs in their mind, and then you can then implant different personalities or different identities within this person's mind, and then you can trigger these personalities so they can carry out whatever you want them to do. Well, kind of like the idea of MK Ultra. Okay, now that's way out there, you know. Okay, I'm sorry. Can you guys hear me now? Shoot, that might have been a minute. I've been running my mouth. I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, it's three. Oh man, it's 3 minutes. No wonder why people were leaving. I'm so sorry. Oh my goodness. And I thought I had all my batteries charged, but evidently I didn't. Okay, I apologize. I've been talking for like three months. You guys, okay. All right. So let me go back here. Yeah, I'm so behind in this chat room too. I was gonna say that we could continue. Let me know if you guys want to or not. Okay. Let me get back. Let me just look in here real quick. Okay, yeah. Okay, so yeah, wow, that was static for a long time. I'm so sorry, everybody. Okay, let me. Someone said they got him. I'm so sorry, and I know it was loud too, because this thing, what it does, it they found us. Oh man, thank you. Someone just texted me who's watching. I know who they are. Okay, this is proof, y'all. This is proof. There is a conspiracy. All right. Okay, let me just ask real quick. Do you guys want to continue? Let me know if you want to, because we can. Someone had asked about the Michael Jackson thing and was I over the top, and I was explaining that. I think that you guys are hilarious. I'm gonna have to put in a disclaimer on this video to let people know to skip over this part. Yeah, I'm so sorry about that. Okay, I'm just getting to the part where I'm back on. People in the chat room. And it went on for such a long time. I'm so sorry. Somebody said Illuminati alert. I'm sorry, Drea. Okay, man, that was at least 4 minutes. I was running my mouth. It was good too. Y'all missed it. All right. Someone says, "So what's up, Devin? I ain't seen you in a long time, bro." It says, "Stop reading super chats." Okay, let me get myself together. I apologize. Okay, now people are coming back. We're almost back to 200. People left. Okay, you guys want to continue? So someone had asked about the Michael Jackson "Beat It." Yeah, so that you had asked Joe about there may have been some truth there, but you went over the top. But the thing is that sometimes when we go over the top, then we dismiss the truth. And I was giving the example of how sometimes, like, I would say certain things that there's no way that I can prove that. I watched the video the other day, and I was like, man, there's parts in there that I can kind of see, like when they sing "Beat It" and they're doing that hand gesture, and it's like, okay, that's clear to me. But then there's a part in the video where I say something like all high-ranking officials in the military and the entertainment industry and politics and religion, they're all satanic. They're all Satanists. I don't know that. How do I know that? Now, if I said some of them, yeah, probably, but all of them? Okay, that's what I mean, going over the top, and it skews the truth. And that's the thing that I noticed when I was watching. The other thing I noticed is that how I talked about homosexuals in that part, or it's really homosexuality inside that particular documentary. It's like borderline homophobia. It is. But again, I'd received so much information about the programming about the gay agenda and homosexuality and Dr. Wilson Brian Keys. You can tell when he talks about homosexuality, he has a very adverse, adversarial approach to that. Now, here's the thing: people's lifestyle, that's your lifestyle, right? But we shouldn't dismiss a person's humanity based on how they're living. And we can just say specifically sexually, whatever their sexual orientation is. Different people have different views on. That's your business, but that's not my business. If y'all do it, that's what you're gonna do. As long as you ain't hurt nobody. Okay, that's your business. The thing is that to have a certain type of negative, and I could hear it even while I was talking. I could hear it. I didn't have that before I got into the conspiracy theory paradigm. I didn't have that. When I grew up, and then we're going to move forward. But when I grew up, we didn't even talk about homosexuality like people talk about it now. LGBTQ, we didn't do that. There were times when we made jokes, like homie to homie, and we say certain things, but really, it's not like everyone was. talking about homosexuals. And see, the thing is, back then, a lot of people who were homosexual, it wasn't like acceptable for them to express that outwardly, you know. These days is a lot different. If you talk to children these days, they'll tell you they know what LGBTQ plus and all this stuff, you know, and I know some of it, but then some of it I'm like, I don't quite understand the difference between, you know, and that's just me and my ignorance. I'll admit that. But the current generation, they know a lot more about those types of things because it's a different society these days. But back then, we didn't really talk about that type of thing. You know, it was kind of like taboo. So what I'm getting at is that I didn't have a negative view about people's lifestyles in that way. But once I got into the conspiracy theory paradigm and I started listening to people like Alex Jones and even David Icke, because some of the stuff that they talked about in terms of these homosexual rituals and, you know, these secret societies, they would do these things, homosexual acts in order for them to be part, that really messed me up, you know. And then when I listened back and I listened to that my first documentary that I produced, which is called What Lies in Plain Sight, I can actually hear it. I can hear it in my voice that it's not the same as what it would have been if I hadn't gotten to the conspiracy theory paradigm. I mean, I wouldn't have done the video anyway, or documentary anyway, but at least my orientation towards seeing homosexuals in a certain way, it wouldn't have been what it was in that particular. And it's not over the top either, but I can tell. Okay. All right, that being said, this would be an excellent opportunity to transition into the second half of this. Okay, and I apologize, everyone, for the issues with the audio. Okay, I apologize. Let's go back to here, and we'll continue with this. All right, and this is Dr. Wilson Brian Keyes. This is one of the 5 top conspiracy theorists that I got into during this time, and he wrote a book called The Age of Manipulation: The Con in Confidence, The Sin in Sincere. And it says the world's foremost authority on subliminal persuasion reveals how the media manage your mind in commercials, print ads, music, and how you can protect yourself. Okay. This book I got a hold of after reading, I think it was David Icke's, one of his books, and he had mentioned Brian Keyes, because in the book they were talking about, David Icke's book, he was talking about subliminal messages and all. So I got deep into this particular aspect of it. Oh yeah, Lenon, you finally joined us. Because what do you mean I finally joined? I was doing conspiracy theories back in 2006. Okay, you probably wasn't even born back then. You probably wasn't even born. Okay, right. It did mess me up. I see certain YouTubers about making fun of you on these topics now. Man, it be your own people. Yeah, that's okay. You know, that's perfectly fine. It's okay. You know, I actually think right now is an interesting time for me, and that's kind of like even me going back and dealing with this when I was in my conspiracy theory paradigm, because it's helped me to kind of come to grips with decisions that I've made in life, and going down this path the way that I did. It was a really bad decision. I can't even tell you and express to you guys, and really a lot of this comes out of after I graduated. I really started to reflect back on, my life. I'm graduating. Okay, that's a great accomplishment, but at your age, this could have been done 25 years. Well, 25 years ago, it could have been done 20 years ago. Okay, well, why didn't you do it 15 years ago? Well, conspiracy theories. See, this is what I was deep into. Yeah. How's it going, Casey? It says, I just want to say it's good that one can explore, realize one is going in the wrong direction and correct. Critical thinkers are supposed to question. Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with that. Yeah, if y'all can hit the like button, I appreciate it. Okay, we got 220 people. So people came back after the audio fiasco. I apologize. People said they got him. They must have. So this is Wilson Brian Keyes, PhD, and I started to really dig deep into his information. His foreword was written by, I think it's a foreword, maybe a preface. I think it's a foreword was written by another PhD, which gives validity to what he was saying. I want to give a definition of symbolism: the use of symbols to represent ideas or qualities. Okay, the use of symbols to represent ideas or qualities. And then subliminal messages. I got deep into subliminal messages that are not recognized or understood by the conscious mind, but still having influence on it. Okay, so your conscious awareness doesn't recognize it, but your subconscious or your unconscious, it registers. And when they say subliminal, I used to always talk about this. So subliminal, you can think of okay, liminal meaning a line of demarcation in your mind, but there's the sub, which is like a submarine. It's under that line, under the water, under the line. And down there, you're not necessarily thinking consciously, but your subconscious mind registers things. Where everything above that, that's what you register consciously. And I'll give you an example. Like, let's say you're driving somewhere, and the first time you drive there, you have to be aware of where you're going. Okay, but let's say after driving there 5 times, at a certain point, you don't even think about it anymore. That's because it's already gone into your subconscious, and you can get in the car, you be thinking about something totally different. You're not thinking about where you're going, and then here you are 5-10 minutes later, and you arrive. But that's what I mean. Okay, so in other words, what you first perceived on a conscious level, it becomes embedded in your subconscious mind. You don't even have to think about it anymore. Well, what if people? What if, on the other hand, what if people put, or let's say mass media, they put subliminals into your subconscious mind? Is it possible for that to begin to impact your conscious awareness, or is it possible for it to impact your unconscious actions? You see, right? So that's where the idea of subliminals come from. Okay? I want to point this out. Some of you guys may not be aware of it, and I may come back to my Black consciousness days at a certain point in this particular series because it is relevant. Prior to getting into conspiracy theories, I was deep into Black consciousness. And one of the people that, when we talk about symbolism and subliminal messages, if you will, but symbolism, to be more specific, one of the people who was kind of like a forerunner for that was Francis Cress Welsing. Anyone in here, if you've heard of Francis Cress Welsing, go ahead and hit the one button as I take a sip here. She wrote a book, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, titled The ISIS Papers, The Keys to the Colors. Okay. Okay, at least one of y'all, Oh, there's a whole bunch of people that watch this. What's up, C? What's up, Donald? Tata's in the building. Wallaby, yeah, rest in peace. Wallaby in the building as well. I read her book many times in college the first time. Yeah, you've heard of her? Okay. Yeah, I've read this book a couple of times. This book in particular, I think when we talk about symbolism, I was already prepared kind of like for Wilson Bryan Keys, because the ISIS paper talked a lot about symbolism. How's it going, Bridget? Thanks for being here. And Novella's here as well. All right. And here are some names that and this isn't an exhaustive, but there's plenty of other people, but I put this list together of some of the Black conscious community people that I was getting into during that time and beyond too. Francis Cress Welsing, Ashra Kwesi, Steve Coakley, Dr. Delbert Blair, Dr. Phil Valentine, and Bobby Hemmett. There's a whole lot more, but I just want to put this together because it's important for people to recognize that I just didn't go into the conspiracy theory paradigm. Years prior to that, I was in the Black conscious community. I don't want to say conscious community. Yeah, well, I can call it conscious community paradigm, right? But this book in particular dealt with symbolism. And here's just a couple of examples, because it is relevant to Wilson Bryan Keys' work, in my opinion. And this is from page 62 of the ISIS papers. It says the basic discussion of white genetic survival through the possession and control of the Black male's genital apparatus is carried forth unconsciously in the present and practices of the global white supremacy system's primary religion, Christianity. And what she does here is she shows a couple of diagrams, if you will, and she kind of breaks down the symbolism of this. All right. And she makes a correlation between what would appear to be a male sex organs here, and then the Christian cross. Now, I actually remember getting into this a long time ago. And here's another example. Diagram number 1, the male genitalia. Diagram sketch, penis and testicles front view. And then diagram 2, the male genitalia diagram sketch, penis and testicle lateral view. And then she makes the correlation between the male genital diagram sketch and number 3, the penis and testicle erect state, and then that of a gun. Okay, really interesting. Very interesting. Okay. Now, this brings us to Wilson Bryan Keys, The Age of Manipulation, the Con and Confidence, and the Sin Insincere. I got in this book, and he wrote a couple of books, but I got deep into this. I was going to play this today, just to kind of give you it's really not necessary to play it. I'm trying not to play things just because of YouTube, but I think it would be good. What do y'all think? Should I go ahead and play it? I can actually pull it up. Give me 1 second. Yeah, but the thing is, I can't play it because the audio is so low. I remember I meant to put it in my digital editing software and increase the audio level, but here, I'll pull it up. But you guys, it's very difficult. And what I mean very difficult to hear, because this is old. This is recorded on VHS. I'll go ahead and pull it up right now. Okay, Wilson Bryan Keys. And if it's really, really low, what I'll do is maybe for the next live stream, I'll have it and I'll edit the audio so that everyone can hear it. And then that way we can go from there. But really all that relevant. But I'll go ahead and play it anyway. So let me go ahead and do a screen share. And then I'm going to share the audio. Okay, let me know if you guys can hear this. You may not be able to, but we'll go ahead and give it a shot. Oh, that's not what we need to show in the chat room. Go ahead and show the chat room. Where is it at? It's not even coming up now. Yeah, let me try this another way because that didn't work. Share screen, window. It's this one. Okay, I clicked on the wrong one. That's why. That's why I showed the chat room. I apologize. Y'all get to see yourself. All right, here it is right here. Okay, let me know if you guys can hear the audio. You're probably not going to be able to hear it. It's really, really low.
And I think subliminally, and not even subliminally, you are trying to sell this book to us tonight by putting it the first one on the list.
I didn't put it there. It was one of your people.
Okay, I'll get them.
But it is for sale, $9.95 at your
Yeah, can you guys hear this? You said it's okay. What's up, D? That's all. Oh, it is? Okay. I was tripping then. Yeah, I'm listening to it on the earbud and I can hear it. Yeah, okay. So I'll go ahead and let this play. He was very charismatic too. He has passed, rest in peace. But this is the guy when I really started to get into the symbolism for the second time, I really got into. Here we go. Oh, I'm sorry. You probably couldn't hear me. Can you hear the audio though? Oh, no sound. Oh my goodness. I don't know what happened. Can you hear me now though? Can you hear me? Looks like we're having audio issues. No sound. All right. Okay, can you hear me, guys? You probably hear me now. Yeah, we have an audio issues for some reason. Okay, yeah, and it's going back and forth. Sometimes the video plays, sometimes it doesn't play, and then you hear me. Okay, so I apologize for that. I don't know what I can do about that. Let me just try this one more time. I'll let it play. Here we go.
Here we go. We're a little too tight now. But
Can we back that up just a bit?
Here we go.
Give the clam some space.
Right. Now, you've never seen clams that look quite like these.
We've been having audio.
I've done, it's an airbrush painting, and a very sophisticated one, and we estimated conservatively about $20,000.
Okay, cool. Yeah, what I'll do is I'll go to my
very expensive art, and there are very few artists good enough to do this. Because it's an art of concealment, not an art of exposition. This thing works because you don't consciously pick up what's in it, but you will unconsciously perceive this, and it will stay in some brain systems for a lifetime. Can we go to the next slide? I've done some outlining of these clam figures. There you are. 8 people at a donkey involved in what I've shown this in the book. I could only describe as a sexual orgy.
Yes.
Now, we have invited the nice people of the Howard Johnson's organizations to come forth and explain what's going on here. They preferred not to comment, and I'm not sure I don't blame them.
But now that's the way you have drawn it in.
I've just simply outlined the figures. Now,
Couldn't you have outlined it a different way
we'll go
and come
back.
up with a different
Let's
picture?
go back now and look at the original again. Once the outlines, now you can perceive them, I think, quite easily on your own. You see, it's an interesting.
Yeah, but see, the thing about that is that if, and this is how subliminal works, if people don't see it, it may not register, but then if you show it, then they're going to see what you show them after you show it. That makes sense. So that's why that's a little iffy with what he's doing right here. Okay.
Dot here, it's in the middle of that of the plate, in the middle of the elliptical shape of the plate, precisely in the middle. The dot being the eye of the donkey, and everything revolves around that. Now,
I did not see no donkey. I ain't gonna lie. I did not see no donkey.
That's an extraordinary piece of art. It's extremely sophisticated, and as I say, very expensive. Was in use for over 5 years in some 2,000 restaurants. Now, I have no quarrel with selling clams or, for that matter, anything else. But this literally, and there's a good amount of published experimental evidence to suggest this has a potential of modifying a person's value system toward reproductive behavior. You can quite conceivably make things like group sex, bestiality, homosex, oral sex, it's all in.
See that? That's what I mean. Okay. And that's what I mean. It's one thing to have a theory, but then when it goes way over the top, where then people are like, huh? So, but did you hear that? He says the thing about bestiality, and okay, and then did you hear he says homosexuality too? That's what I mean by the influence. You know, I've heard that type of thing, and it may not be outwardly stated, but you can tell there's a little bit of a, you know, and I heard it with Alex Jones. I actually heard it with David Icke too at times, and other people too. That actually influenced me at a certain point. It did. Okay, so that's Dr. Wilson Brian Keys. By the way, I didn't see any videos of him at that time. When I got into him, I was specifically read the book and was intrigued by it. All right, so let me get back to I want to show this to everyone, and I want to ask you all: do you see the subliminal here? Okay, some of you guys already see it, but do you see the subliminal here? Just to give an example of what Dr. Wilson Brian Key was kind of alluding to. If you can see what the subliminal is, hit the 1, and if you can't, hit the 2. Okay, some people see it. What the hell? What the heck? You don't stop. Yeah, okay, so most of you guys see it, right? Some people don't see it. All right. You're not good at these. That's okay, LeBron, Megatron, James Brady. What kind of name? Then you got a Decepticon with a Nike sticker. You all right. Okay. All right. You don't. So there's some people that don't see it. Why are you stealing content? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know if you had. Is this your channel? Wisdom Radio? I don't know. I have this on video. Okay. What do you have this subliminal, or you have the actual Wilson Brian Key a video on your YouTube page? By the way, I actually have this particular subliminal from a documentary that I did back in 2008. Okay, so let me show this to people. So some people can't see it, some people do, but now you'll be able to clearly see it. You see that? And the interesting thing about these types of subliminals is once you see it, you can no longer not see it. If that makes sense. All right. You see it? Now, no, there's no way that you're not going to see it now. Yeah, exactly, D. Exactly. Yeah, okay. So you've been around a long time. That was probably in 2008. It was probably it could have been 2007, but it was probably 2008 because I had this inside of the documentary that I put together called "What Lies in Plain Sight." Okay, so I just want to give an example of a subliminal. All right. Yeah, it's called negative space. Yeah, exactly, Devin. It's called negative space. We tend not to look at the negative space, right? Okay. So I just want to go back to this. I didn't watch any of his videos. I specifically read the book. I read it over and over again. He actually has a couple of books, and I ordered those and I watched those too. Okay. But I want to read something to you. And again, I want to apologize to people if you're in the LGBT community, LGBTQ plus, specifically people if you're homosexual, because there's been times where I've made jokes and I regret that. You know, there's homosexual jokes. I've talked heterosexual jokes too. I've also told lesbian jokes, right? I apologize if I've offended anybody. I think part of me going back to these conspiracy theory days is because someone said, "Will you apologize to Rihanna at something?" I said, "You know, I probably should." And I'm thinking in my mind, Jay-Z, probably I should. It's not like they watch, so it's not, you know, I'm like insignificant, but just to get it off the weight of it all, because a lot of my work earlier on, you know, it dealt with analyzing music and music videos and music lyrics, but really missing out on I kind of feel like just not really seeing human value because I was so wrapped up into proving conspiracies to be true. Okay, that's a problem. And there's a way to be able to do the analysis, but then recognize that we're also still dealing with a human being. That's what I mean by getting lost in the conspiracy theory paradigm. It's not just with the analysis and the videos. It was also reflective of me dealing with the rest of the world and kind of shutting myself off from the rest of the society and just really trying to just hyper-vigilance, trying to protect my family from threats that didn't even exist. This conspiracy theory paradigm for me, it was a doozy. It really was. So I want to read something to you because you can actually you can start to kind of see Wilson Brian Key, how his view about homosexuality and homosexuals, it's a bit jaded in my opinion, and it could be reflective of his analysis of the Beat It video, which is the foundation upon which I did the my first documentary many years ago. I believe it was in 2008, could have been in 2007. It was titled "What Lies in Plain Sight." What lies in plain sight. But before I read this again, I want to apologize if you are LGBT or you homosexual. Okay. So this is Brian Keyes. This is from his book. I don't have the page number here, but he said double entendre audio is also widespread. As with the visual examples, double meanings appear to enrich significance in virtually any symbolic stimuli. Michael Jackson's rock music extravaganza Thriller. Was it really rock? What are you talking about? It was kind of rockish, but man, come on. Extravaganza Thriller reportedly sold some 22 million copies, a whole lot more than that. The album spawned a number of rock videos that advertised the record album. Okay, now he says the Beat It scenario is disarmingly simple. A group of young men, women are completely absent, enter a large room. They are aggressive, uptight, angry, looking for a fight. Two begin a knife fight. Their combat crudely choreographed as a ballet. Michael Jackson bravely intercedes. They finally put away their knives. And see, when I see this, I'm thinking about Frances Cress Welsing, because she talked about how guns and knives can be symbolic representations of penises, right? So two begin a knife fight. They combat crudely choreographed as a ballet. Michael Jackson bravely intercedes. They finally put away their knives, and everyone then participates in a precision dance routine. Jackson leading the chorus. The lyric "Beat It" repeats over and over. There appeared only one other recognizable line in the lyric: "No one wants to beat it." The voices are loud, hysterical, screaming, led by the high-pitched, effeminate voice of Michael Jackson. Okay, so even him saying high-pitched, effeminate voice. And I actually, listen, I bought into this too. I'm so sorry. You know, I'm so sorry. It says roughly 300 university students were asked how many times they had listened to Beat It. Of the 97% who had heard the song, 28% had heard it from 1 to 25 times, 21% from 26 to 50 times, et cetera, et cetera. The 51% of students who had heard Beat It over 50 times were considered aficionados. I don't see why, and used for further testing. Oh, I guess I can see why. If anything was significant about Beat It, they appeared most likely to know. On an anonymous questionnaire, half of the aficionados confessed that they had no idea that what the title "Beat It" meant. The remainder attempted to rationalize the title as the music beat or rhythm, beat up or fight with someone, where beating it or them, getting away with something, putting it or them down, criticizing, or beat the system. Okay. Here we go. For the past 50 years, Beat It has been a euphemism for male masturbation. And guess what? That's true. That's true. Okay, this is an older book, but I remember we were talking and talking trash and stuff. And it wasn't just beating that either. It was like, we would say things like, if you had sex with a girl, did you beat that? Did you beat her? Did you beat it last night? That's what we would say. Okay. I was a virgin though, but I just said it anyway, just because, you know, I was a good boy. I really was. Y'all know I'm lying. I'm sorry. Let me stop being silly. All right. I apologize. Is that not one of the aficionados? Okay, I'm sorry. Beat It has been a euphemism for male masturbation. Not one of the aficionados, roughly 1/3 female and 2/3 male, mentioned sexual implications about Beat It. The survey was repeated several times with similar results. The students had repressed or hidden from conscious awareness the reality of Beat It. Michael Jackson's mega hit portrayed young men as a group of homosexual masturbation at a group homosexual masturbation session. The group was beating it, letting loose tension. When the choreography is viewed in slow motion, each time the dancers pass their right hand across their genital areas, their hand jerks in a perfect unison. And you know, that's true. It's true. It's undeniable. Like if you watched the video, you guys can go watch it right now. I mean, I would like to play it, but again, I don't know if YouTube, I don't want to compromise my account. But if you watch the video, and that's the first thing, when I went and I watched it, and based on what he was saying, when they say beat it, they go, beat it, beat it, beat it, beat it. Oh, I want to beat it. When they say that, everyone makes this hand gesture, and they're all going like near their crotch area. And I said, wait a minute. Is this true? And every time they say it, they do that. So it's not by accident. Then my head started, I've been into conspiracy theories, and then I try to prove it to be true. It says when someone does not consciously know something, they should reasonably be expected to know. They should be reasonably expected to know. It is usually significant. Young people tend to be secretive about masturbation. The carefully kept secret, however, is well known to everyone. The writer, director, choreographer, composer, photographers, musicians, and performers in Beat It consciously had to know what they were doing in the costly rock video production. Not necessarily. That's an overreach as I'm saying this right now, because I contend at this point, as I looked at this, is that the choreographer knew what the deal was. Okay, it doesn't mean that the songwriter, because the songwriter has nothing to do with the video at that point. The song has already been written. Okay, now the director of the video, perhaps, the choreographer for sure, when they say beat it, and this makes sense to people, that when the choreographer, when they say beat it, and they have this specific hand gesture, okay, you would think that the choreographer knows exactly what's happening there. But to say that the composer and the photographers and the musicians, that's over the top. Okay. And it says the performers perhaps consciously had to know what they were doing in the costly rock video. Why are they calling it rock? Anyway, I'm getting agitated. They also had to predict accurately that audiences would not consciously deal with the group, he calls it the J-off, would repress reality. Unconsciously perceived information of this taboo nature ensures a deep, meaningful emotional response and continued. I don't know about that. Deep, meaningful response. That's what I mean. It's just like over the top. But again, I got to say something. I took all of this and I just took it at face value. I mean, I'd been so deep in the conspiracy theory paradigm. And then here, this guy comes along. He's associated with David Icke is the one that mentions him. David Icke has already been validated by Credo Mutwa, in my mind, an African, South African. So I said, okay, well, he must be telling the truth too. The book is written by a PhD and the foreword is by a PhD. So, okay, this must be true. But even reading it now, it's like, wait a minute, this is way over the top. Then it says they also, unconsciously perceived information of this taboo nature ensures deep, meaningful emotional response and continued memory. I don't see how, but during the survey, once the subject or of group of homosexual masturbation became consciously perceived, the students appeared almost unanimously turned off of the recording. Many commenting they felt nauseous when they thought of it. Okay, come on. All right, so I wanted to share that just because that really was the catalyst for me to start to produce conspiracy videos. Now, and I should say the catalyst to actually produce videos. It's not that because I'd already put in 2 years of like studying, is going deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole. But the idea to actually put a video together, I took what he said and I started to do an analysis of the Michael Jackson's Beat It video. And then from that, especially once I saw them doing that hand gesture whenever they saw a beat, I said, oh, wait a minute. And then it's almost like, what is the term? It's like taking something in this state and then starting to backtrack to reconfigure it and then find things that support it, if this makes sense. And so I would go back and I would look at different elements inside of the video and try to figure out a way to connect it to beat it, beat it, beat it. See, well, that's not really the proper way of going about things, but that's what I did. I watched the video yesterday and there are things in there where I said, okay, I can see that. But then there's things in there where I said, wait a minute, that's you reaching. That's what we used to call it back then, just reaching. But the reaching had more to do with my mentality at that time as I got deeper into the conspiracy theory paradigm, where there was a need for me to prove conspiracies to be true instead of going through proper intellectual process and getting conclusive evidence to determine something. See, the truth of the matter is that if David Icke says that there's reptilian shapeshifters, he should provide the evidence. I shouldn't have to be the one to try to find the evidence. You see, if Alex Jones says that they created a gay bomb, that's what he called it. If they created a gay bomb, I shouldn't have to provide evidence to that. He should provide the evidence. Well, the same thing with Dr. Wilson Brian Key. If he's going to make that particular claim or that assertion or propose that theory, he needs to provide the evidence that backs it up. As opposed to me, back in 2007 or 2008, trying to figure out a way to make it true. And I did that for many, many years, many years. Yeah, go watch it. Yeah, go watch it and you'll see what I mean. I mean, you could you could see it and say, okay, it's significant. And I'm talking about when they're singing beat it, but then on the other hand, you could see it and say, well, maybe it's just accidental. Maybe it doesn't mean anything. And that's possible too. But for me, I believed it. You know, I believed it in totality. Okay. Just beat it, beat it, beat it. No one wants to be defeated, showing how funky and strong is your fight. It doesn't matter. You all share the lyrics. Joe says, I'm still not seeing this as over the top. It makes perfect sense when watching. Yeah, I know, but if you watch my interpretation of it, there are things in there where it is over the top, you know, and that's why, you know, I actually feel, when I watched it, I felt bad, you know, back then, I don't know. I just felt bad, you know? Okay. Okay. Let me see. I think I have just a couple more slides here and then we'll be done. I mean, really want to, we could have had this as an hour, but you guys want to keep going. So let me, this is what the last thing I want to share here. I did the film, What Lies in Plain Sight. I believe it was in 2008. It may have been in 2007, but I think it was in 2008. And I really would like to play it for you all, but I was thinking what we could do is maybe do a live stream where all I do is play some of my older videos. That way, if you know, if YouTube has a problem with it, it would only apply to that particular video, and then I can take it down. But I'll think about that. But this is what I wrote back in the day. I said, this film functions as an introduction to subliminal messages and symbolism. In this film, LenonHonor uses Michael Jackson's song and video Beat It as an example of the subliminal programming present in the entertainment industry. LenonHonor also explains the deeper subliminal storyline present in the song and video Beat It. All right. And that pretty much concludes episode number 2 of the journey through the conspiracy theory program. We'll be getting into episode number 3, and we'll be focusing on this right here. I don't need to read this right now. Let me just ask, are there any final questions if you guys have dealing with anything we've talked about thus far? I'll take some questions and we'll close out. We got about 250 people here. I'm amazed that people have been watching. I think the other video got like 3,000 views or something like that. Maybe it was 2,000. I can't remember. So it looks like the people are interested, and I'll continue with this series. If for nothing else, it actually has helped me to kind of, I don't know, just reconcile with my past. And I just had a hard time after I graduated. I was just thinking about that time period. Oh, it's already, we got like 4,678 views for the other one. So there's a strong interest in this. So we'll continue, at least relatively speaking. I have a small YouTube page, but we'll continue with this for sure. Someone said, have you watched Zeitgeist? I watched Zeitgeist many, many times, like over and over and over again. I can't tell you how many times I watched that. I remember when it came out, it was really, really huge, you know? Well, you have to remember, this was on the tail end of the Satanic Panic. I don't remember the Satanic Panic. I do not remember that. Let me just look in here. Dottie says, I think the problem lies when people use misinformation for profit scams. Question, what do you think should be done about misinformation, and what are your plans to counter it? I don't necessarily have a plan to counter misinformation. I have a sense that back then I wasn't thinking misinformation. I just kind of accepted any information that seemed to be credible as true. And that was the problem of going down the rabbit hole. Let me give you an example. Do you all remember? I brought up Alex Jones talking about a gay bomb. That's misinformation. There's no such thing as a gay bomb. At least I ain't never heard. You know, I ain't never heard nothing like that. I ain't seen no evidence of that. Same thing with the reptilian shapeshifters. That's misinformation. Now, here's the thing: if there's clear proof of it, then show it. And I went through the process of Donnie, of trying to prove that reptilian. Why should I have to prove it? I'm not the one that proposed it. You see what I mean? Let me give you guys another example real quick. Then we're going to be done, because this is a good show. I just wish we didn't have all the audio problems. Let me give you another example about this, the misinformation aspect. When I got into David Icke, initially what he was saying was far out there to me. Initially. But the more and more I got into his information, and I started connecting these dots from over here and these dots from over there, and I started to believe everything. But why should I have to be the person to prove that reptilian shapeshifters exist? And that's what I did. but it's misinformation, you know, and there's a lot of that. And I will say that I participated. That's like I have some regrets about all this too. I participated in some of that too, you know. I participated in some of that. And the crazy part is that I believed that what I was saying was true. That's where the delusion part comes in. See? What's up, information man? Yeah, it is. It has been. You know, it's almost like letting it go. I thought about this today too, Tata. I was like, okay, I planning on doing this show, and I actually feel like this is a roadblock for me to continue to move forward in life. You know, it's like a roadblock. I graduated, okay, and I've been feeling like, okay, what's next? What's next? You know, I just feel like this is something that I have to resolve and get through all of this. I just wish I could play the videos and we can really get into what my work was back then. Oh, there's some trolls in here. Oh, that's okay. It's all good. At least they're here. You know, that's okay. Yeah, I'm gonna get the likes up. Any final questions? And then we'll close out. Why would our minds instinctively see the subliminals? Does automatically detecting it speak to our hearts? Some people didn't see it. It brings to mind scripture. Well, some people may have already seen that particular subliminal. Once you see it, you're not going to not see it, you know. But I also think that there are people who are probably more adept at actually seeing subliminals than others. And it can be the result of practice, you know, looking for it. Because I spent a lot of time. I have a whole series where I'm just dealing with different subliminals. I was thinking about setting up a playlist on YouTube and put all that in there because it can correlate to what we've been talking about here. But I think some people they're able to see them better. Some people they practice, so they are able to see them. And you know, I did a lot of work. I used to have a radio show, and I would set up a page with all these different pictures and stuff that were subliminal, had subliminal messages in them, and then we would go one by one and analyze it. You know. Information man says he was just trying to make money off of us. It was all a lie, just to make money. Hustle like. Well, are you talking about David Icke? Yeah, I don't even know if he believed in reptilian shapeshifters. He may have, you know, because when you get into that conspiracy, you become delusional. You start to believe in things that are not true, you know. Humans have a need to understand the world. Sometimes trying to prove conspiracy theories can be a way to convince yourself that you understand the world and feel more secure. Yeah, you're right about that. I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. Yep, very good. Okay, I'm trying to get to the bottom here. How did the Oro Oyogunmunde mythos tie in? Oro Oyogunmunde is a mixture of Christian and Ifa and Norse mythology. That's what that's all. And how it tied in was because I did the Michael Jackson Beat It analysis, and that analysis was more on a kind of like physical level. But then when I got to analyzing Rihanna's Umbrella, there's I guess you can say a spiritual dimension to that. You know, with what they call the Rain Man, and some people call it the Baphomet. So I had to kind of bridge the gap between the Beat It analysis and the Rihanna Umbrella analysis. And the way that I did it was to create, and I didn't start with Oyo Oyogunmunde. I think I started with something called the Gods. I can't even remember the title. I can't even remember the title. We could play that though, because that's my own work. I don't have any music videos in that. We could do that at a certain point, but that was the way to kind of bridge the gap between the two, because it was kind of like a leap. And I figured, okay, if I'm going to leap to this point, I have to find some way to kind of get there. And that was the way that I got there. And I didn't produce Oro Oyogunmunde until later. They were allegories. They were interesting stories too. Like I thought they were interesting, at least at the time. If I watch it now, I'll probably this is a bunch of bull jive. Pierre Land says that's true. Then back in the day, I wanted you to cover stuff like Operation Midnight Climax that really happened. I hadn't even heard of Operation Midnight Climax. I hadn't even heard of that. The biggest takeaway from all this is take your time to research and validate those sources. The misinformation nowadays is insane. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, I don't see any other questions in here. Oh, thank you, Dre. I appreciate it. Yeah, I don't see any other questions. So this would be a good point to start off or stop here. I know we still got 220 something people in the building. It's been about an hour and 50 minutes. Any final questions before we close out here? We'll be done. I'm thinking today's Tuesday, so I'm thinking maybe Thursday or Friday we'll do the next episode, and I'll get my notes together and put together a brief presentation for that. Okay, I think that's it. All right, I want to thank everyone who tuned in, everyone inside the Cookie Crush chat room, all the mods. Thank you for handling the business too. And also, I want to thank everyone who sent in super chats or super stickers during this live stream. Please enjoy the rest of your evening. And before you head out, if you can hit the like button, I would really, really appreciate it. Okay, enjoy your evening. Take care. Peace.